Here we are already in our second week of Advent, and our subject matter has now become a new focus. Now we're going to focus on the subject of peace. And so, to get us started in that direction, I have a quote today from Francis of Assisi. When you are proclaiming peace with your lips, be careful to have it even more fully in your heart. So, the second candle of the Advent wreath symbolizes the theme of peace. And peace can be found at such a variety of levels: peace within the entire world, peace within two communities, peace between the people of a nation, peace that descends upon a family, peace that we feel within our own hearts and our own minds. Now, the writer Leo Tolstoy may have titled his classic novel War and Peace, which gives us the impression that they are opposites, either war or peace. But I don't think that war is the only contradictory term that comes up against peace. Unrest, turmoil, chaos, discord, all of them stand in opposition to the different degrees of peace that we find or that we look for in our lives. So, how do we define peace? I think it may be easier as we go through these meditations for this next week for us to take the approach of perhaps we don't have a definition, but we certainly know it when we see it, or perhaps we know it when we feel it. We know what it feels like to have a sense of peace. And so let's start with one of our hymns, where that's the main focus of the words. And take a few moments now to settle into where you are. Find a little slice of peace in your life at this time. Take a few of our deep cleansing breaths. Begin to feel a bit of a sense of calm, of order, of security, of peace. O Zion, haste, thy mission high fulfilling, to tell to all the world that God is light. He who made all nations is not willing one soul should fail to know his love and might. Publish glad tidings, tidings of peace, tidings of Jesus, redemption, and release. Proclaim to every people, tongue, and nation that God, in whom they live and move, is love. Tell how he stooped to save his lost creation and died on earth that all might live above. Publish glad tidings, tidings of peace, tidings of Jesus, redemption, and release. Send heralds forth to bear the message glorious. Give of thy wealth to speed them on their way. Pour out thy soul for them in prayer victorious, till God shall bring his kingdom's joyful day. publish glad tidings, tidings of peace, tidings of Jesus, redemption and release. He comes again, O Zion, ere thou meet him. Make known to every heart his saving grace. Let none whom he hath ransomed fail to greet him. Through thy neglect unfit to see his face. Publish glad tidings, tidings of peace, tidings of Jesus, redemption and release. When we contemplate a hymn's wording, we can often take some time to speculate a little bit about what perhaps the author was thinking or feeling at the time that the hymn was written. In this particular case, we have the actual words of the writer herself. Mary Ann Thompson was born in 1834 in London, England, and wrote a total of around 40 hymns in her lifetime, 4 of which have made it into our current hymnal and are still sung today. She wrote about this particular hymn. I wrote the greater part of the hymn, O Zion, Haste, in the year 1868. I had written many hymns before, and one night, while I was sitting up with one of my children who was ill of typhoid fever, I thought I should like to write a missionary hymn to the tune of the hymn beginning, Hark, hark, my soul, angelic songs are swelling, as I was fond of that tune. But as I could not then get a refrain that I liked, I left the hymn unfinished. And about 3 years later, I finished it by writing the refrain, which now forms part of it. She went on to say, by some mistake, 1891 is given instead of 1871 as the date of the hymn in the Episcopal hymnal. I do not think it is ever sung to the tune to which I wrote it. Reverend John Anketel told me, and I am sure he is right, that it is better for a hymn to have a tune of its own, and I feel much indebted to the composer of the tune Tidings for writing so inspiring a tune to my words. The peaceful harmony between the words and the tune is another concept of peace that we may not have thought of before. That connectedness between the words and the music, that when they go together so well, it gives us a beautiful opportunity to feel a sense of peace. In the book of the letter of Paul to the Philippians, Paul wrote, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And so, as always, I have a few questions to send us off to think about until we come together tomorrow. We often describe war, as I said, as being the opposite of peace. And historically, many wars have occurred between two sides that both think they are fighting because they are right. Within this hymn, though, we have a phrase that might cause us to think differently. How does the verse that says, God who made all nations is not willing one soul should fail to know his love and might, change that perception? The second one is one that I've often thought about a lot in my lifetime. The phrase that we get from Philippians, the peace of God that transcends all understanding. How does that make you feel? And how do we as believers begin to try to understand? And finally, a large question that can be pondered, but who knows if there's even an answer to it or not, but it certainly is worth thinking about. How do you find peace within your own heart? So thank you for joining me again today. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. And until then, take care and God bless.